So John the Breakfast Cereal Hickenlooper was destroyed by a Bernie Sanders supporter here on the issue of healthcare. And what I love about this clip is that the Bernie supporter wasn't even trying. You're going to see it, but the Bernie supporter's like, Mr. Hickenlooper, why should anybody support you? And like he's talking like very relaxed, and he's not trying to get him or anything, but without even trying, he just like casually owns him. So take a look and then we'll discuss.
Currently supports Bernie Sanders. Here's your chance.
All right, so in 2016, when Colorado was considering a ballot measure to make the state the first in the country to have universal government-run health care, you came out against single-payer health care, saying that, quote, it would be premature to dramatically remake our healthcare system at this time. How do you expect voters to choose you over some of your contenders, like Bernie Sanders, who have had a consistent record of support for single-payer healthcare over their careers?
Well, thank you, and I appreciate that. In Colorado, and one of the things that we've done, I think, as well as any state, I've been able to bring people together who were on different sides of the fence, in many cases feuding, and find collaborative solutions. And I think, we're at almost universal coverage in Colorado. We're about 95% coverage. And we did that by expanding Medicaid, by creating one of the most innovative and successful healthcare exchanges in the country. I don't agree with Senator Sanders' the single-payer approach that you're going to have Medicare for all. I understand that we need a public option. I understand to get to that 100% coverage. I mean, let's be honest. Healthcare should be a right, not a privilege, right? And I will do everything I can to make sure I believe that. I've worked for that. I helped start a community health center in 1973, and we said back then healthcare needs to be a right, not a privilege. I want to support any way we can get to universal coverage. That should be our first and primary goal. It should be our North Star. But I also recognize that there are north of 150 million people that have private. I mean, how many of you now have insurance through you or a family member have insurance through your place of business, right? I mean, there are over 150 million people that I can't imagine how we would pull them off of health care coverage that in most cases they like. I am more focused on how do we, A, make sure we get to universal coverage, and then make sure that we use, if it's Medicare, which I think is a good choice, or even Medicare Advantage, where you have different solutions and opportunities available, maybe more cost effective even than Medicare. How do we make sure that we get to that universal coverage, but at the same time maintain and improve quality, and ultimately look at controlling costs? I mean, in the end, the last 30 years has been a spiral of medical inflation. And whether we look at transparency, if we look at preventative medicine and healthcare, we've got to be addressing this as a whole country.
I like how it was just dead silence in the room when he was done talking. He was basically doing like nonsense, incoherent babble, word salad by the end of it. He's like, and then what we got to do is get transparency is great, and then we have to do preventative also and stuff. And everybody's like, come on, John, what are you doing, bro? So let's walk through this. Again, I love the person who asked the question there, Bernie supporter who's not even trying, just asking a substantive question, and then puts the breakfast cereal in a corner. By the way, relatively, this is a random side point here, but I'm like super certain the breakfast cereal wears a toupee. Like, that looks like a toupee to me. Now, I'm not hating, because I actually think it doesn't look bad, but it looks almost certainly like a toupee. But anyway, I digress. I like how after he was asked a very incredibly substantive, difficult question that puts him in a corner, his response is, thank you, I appreciate that question. Dude, no you don't. Stop. Like, why do they do that? Why are you doing that? Thank you for making me look like a giant asshat. I really appreciate it. No, you don't. No, you don't. And this is a rare instance where I feel like Trump, even though he's horrendous in virtually every way, he was a little bit of a breath of fresh air when it came to rhetoric and the typical politician's playbook. Because if he was asked a question he didn't like, he would just be like, wrong, fake news, fake news. Whereas all these assholes who are overcoached are like, well, thank you for putting me in a corner and making me look like an asshole. I really appreciate you being here. No, you don't. You don't have to do that. Okay, anyway. So here's why he's a naive fool. He says, well, hey man, in Colorado, we had bipartisan collaborative effort. So we worked across the aisle and we got something done and it was wonderful. Now, first of all, you're bragging about having 95% coverage. That's not something to brag about. You're effectively bragging that 5% of people in Colorado do not have health coverage. Every other developed country looks at you like you're insane when you say something like that. Like, we almost did the most basic thing imaginable, giving everybody health care. Almost. Only 5%. We missed. That's a lot of fucking people, bro. That's a lot of people. And furthermore, when you say, the reason I'm against Bernie's plan is we gotta be bipartisan and collaborative in our effort. They will not support anything you put forward. How did you not learn this lesson? Were you asleep for all of the Obama years? Obama's final proposal, which we ended up getting implemented, was an individual mandate system, the Affordable Care Act, called, Obamacare, people refer to it as. And the whole idea behind that came from the Heritage Foundation, which is a right-wing think tank. It was Bob Dole's plan. It was Mitt Romney's plan. Newt Gingrich and Chuck Grassley supported this kind of plan. So the whole idea is keep the private health insurance system intact, pass a law that says people need to get their own coverage, subsidize people at the bottom, expand Medicaid, and do some more regulations. That was the right-wing plan originally. How many Republican votes did he get when Obama proposed their plan, a Republican plan? 0. They're just not that into you, bro. It doesn't matter what you propose, they're going to say no. So why not hold your own caucus and get the proper policy implemented, which is Medicare for all, which we know covers everybody, and we know reduces cost. Because they're drunk. He's drunk on bipartisanship nonsense. He's drunk on I'm a reasonable centrist. I'm above the fray, even though we've gotten our ass handed to us for the past 3 fucking decades, and every Democrat who's been elected, Bill Clinton and Barack Obama, were centrists. They were centrists. And we still have a giant problem with our healthcare system. Maybe it's time for radical change. And by radical, I mean catching up to the rest of the industrialized world. And then I find it funny how he talks about how we got 95% coverage in Colorado, and then soon after he goes, we got to understand, healthcare's a right. Wait, are you bragging about the 95% coverage, or are you saying healthcare is a right? Because those are two very different things. In fact, they're diametrically opposed. If you're bragging about 95% coverage, that means 5% of people are not covered, which means when you say healthcare is a right, you certainly didn't implement a policy that reflects that. And you shouldn't be bragging about 95% coverage if you think it's a right, because you kind of miss 5% that are kind of pretty important. And then I like how his final point is, well, a lot of people have private care, so what are you going to do? What a dumb point, man. That's like saying, well, I mean, the entire economy runs on fossil fuels. What are you going to do? You're stuck with fucking fossil fuels. Or not. Or, there was a time we had fucking Morse code as a main source of talking to each other, and then eventually we graduated, and we got the phone, and then eventually we graduated from that, and, this idea of it's how it's done now. So what do you mean? Yeah, it's how it's done now. That's the fucking problem. That's the problem. That's not a self-justifying argument. What do you mean? It's how it's done now. I mean, imagine, go talk to somebody who's helplessly addicted to crystal meth and try to say, hey, let's try to help you, try to get your life in order. So, I don't know what you mean, bro. I take crystal meth. That's what I do. So what do you mean? That's what I do. Yeah, I know, but we're trying to change that and make it better. Make everything better. But I do it now, so what is people have healthcare now, they have private healthcare now. Yeah, and it sucks. It sucks. I mean, we're talking about a system where 32 to 45,000 people die every year because they don't have access to basic healthcare. We're talking about a system where premiums and deductibles and copays are through the goddamn roof. We're talking about a system where you're tied into a job that oftentimes people don't want to be tied into it, but they have no choice. They have to stay there because they can't go and change and look for another job because they need healthcare and they would have a lapse in their insurance and they can't afford that, so they have to stay with the job they don't like. John, you're embarrassing. What are you doing? Step aside. All these fucking centrists. Oh my God, I can't take it. They're so out of step and out of touch with what's needed in this country, and it's beyond embarrassing, although not as embarrassing as when he said he went and saw a porno with his mom.